Welcome to INFOWARS Nightly News on this April 12, 2012 edition with me, your host, Paul Joseph Watson.
Tonight on INFOWARS Nightly News, is the Bilderberg Group choosing Romney's running mate? We examine the blatant political manipulation of the power elite. Then Homeland Security expands its power grab with environmental justice units. Plus, citizens in Indiana may now use deadly force to defend themselves against the growing police state. All this and more tonight. We take you now to London, England, and Paul Joseph Watson.
Top story tonight, Washington Post suggests Bilderberg Group to pick Mitt Romney's running mate. A story in today's Washington Post written by veteran columnist Al Kamen suggests that the Bilderberg Group may have a decisive role to play in picking Mitt Romney's running mate, continuing a recent trend in which the secretive cabal has had a hand in influencing the US presidential election. So we have a 30-year veteran at the Washington Post, this Al Kamen, who has a column called In the Loop, and if anyone was in the loop, then you would expect him to be on the inside of the affairs, especially given the fact that Washington Post has a Bilderberg representative at every meeting. And he basically says that just as Bilderberg picked John Edwards as Kerry's running mate in 2004, after Edwards had given a strong speech on foreign policy, he implies that the same process could be happening with Mitt Romney's VP pick. That's what you get from reading between the lines, because we've got Obama and Hillary Clinton jetting over to the Summit of the Americas in Colombia this weekend, and Senator Marco Rubio will be joining them, and he's been touted by many as a potential running mate for Mitt Romney. Of course, in 2008, we had the story of Obama and Clinton scuttling off to a secret meeting in Northern Virginia, by no coincidence, the same location at which that year's Bilderberg meeting was taking place. And those two, as I said, are on their travels again this week. So the location and date of the Bilderberg 2012 meeting remains unknown. But given that it's a US presidential election year, and given the role that Bilderberg routinely has in its king-making capacity, the speculation that this year's confab will again take place in North America is probably not far off the mark. But that In the Loop column by Al Kamen certainly suggests that Rubio is on the list as a potential VP pick for Romney. And let's not forget that it was the former Fannie Mae CEO who Obama directly asked to pick his running mate back in 2008, and that was Jim Johnson. He was also involved in the 2004 Edwards pick. So Bilderberg seems to be getting all their ducks in a line to have another influence on this year's presidential election. So whether it's Marco Rubio or not, they will certainly have a hand in deciding who Mitt Romney's running mate is this year. Moving on, Green Police, DHS launches environmental justice units. Audi's 2010 Green Police spoof commercial may be not far off becoming reality, with the announcement that the Department of Homeland Security is creating new, quote, environmental justice units that will be empowered to oversee regulations in conjunction with local government. So the DHS is dedicating some of its agents to, quote, environmental justice, according to this story. This is an agency, of course, that was created in the aftermath of 9/11 to fight terrorism, in between, of course, protecting Americans from the deadly threat posed by Kinder Surprise chocolate eggs and faulty hairdryers. Now, the DHS is concerning itself with, quote, climate change and, quote, melting Arctic ice. That's part of the commitment to environmental justice that the Department of Homeland Security has engaged itself in. So how long before the Green Police are running checkpoints on your street with environmental TSA agents performing strip searches of your garbage can? Maybe that's the direction it's heading with this new DHS focus on environmental justice. And staying on the subject of supposed melting Arctic ice, which the DHS now tells us they're very concerned about. We've got this story out of the Register, which is amount of ice in Bering Sea reaches all-time record. Man, bear, pig not living up to its name once again. Quote, the amount of floating ice in the Arctic's Bering Sea, which had long been expected to retreat disastrously by climate Cassandra organizations such as Greenpeace, reached all-time record high levels last month, according to US researchers monitoring the area using satellites. And this is what the global warming alarmists at Greenpeace said would happen to the Bering Sea back in 1999. Quote, the first regions to be affected will be ice-dependent seas near but outside the Arctic Ocean proper, including the Bering Sea. These areas are currently covered in seasonal winter ice, which could vanish altogether with continued warming. So, 1999, the global warming alarmists come out and say this ice is going to vanish altogether, going to be gone, just like we heard the ice-free Arctic summer propaganda a few years ago. Actually turns out that the sea is at record high levels again. The global warming alarmists' data models proven completely inaccurate. So even as all this Agenda 21 regulation is foisted upon us by the elite with, pensioners being kicked out of doctors' surgeries because they live a mile away, and that's a sin against the planet because of their carbon footprint, even as detached homes in California are being made virtually illegal with these new zoning laws, the carbon tax grid is being put in still under the justification of global warming, even though back here in reality, the data refuses to conform with the climate change hysteria. Next story, it's trendy to have cancer. Barbie to roll out cancer doll with bald head chemo side effects. Reports Jonathan Benson out of Natural News. A Facebook petition signed by more than 157,000 people has prompted the Mattel company to create a new Barbie doll in the likeness of a cancer victim. It's all very trendy. According to news.com.au, the bald-headed doll, which will be dubbed a friend of Barbie, is set to be released in 2013 and will come with an assortment of head dressings and clothing commonly worn by real-life female cancer victims. So instead of making cancer victims into some kind of cultural motif, which is what this is, it's embracing and normalizing skyrocketing cancer rates, making it fashionable, especially amongst children. Why don't we actually spend our time looking at why cancer has gone through the roof? Why in the West now we've got more than 1 in 3. The figure is now up to 42% in Britain of people over the course of their lifetimes will get cancer. I mean, we're climbing towards a 50% rate where half of people get cancer at some point in their lives. And as we've covered before, it's a cocktail of things. It's the bisphenol A, it's the pesticides, it's the pasteurized milk, environmental toxins, and the fact that children are getting it at record levels also proves that it's not due to, obesity and sedentary lifestyles. It's in our environment, it's in our food, it's in the things we drink, it's in the air that we breathe. And so Barbie, Mattel, the Mattel company, have come out and tried to symbolize all this with a children's toy, tried to normalize it, tried to embrace it as a trendy, fashionable thing to do. So when, 13-year-old girls are getting cancer, people will just say, oh, well, that's just the way it is now. They won't even ask the question why this is happening. And so, I mean, we've got to ask the question, why in 2012, when we're supposed to be at the pinnacle of our medical expertise as a society, the most advanced we've ever been at preventing and treating disease, why is cancer exploding? And why now through these big toy manufacturers and culture in general is cancer, especially amongst young people, being normalized? Why is it being embraced? Next story. Addicting Info reports Indiana governor signs bill into law allowing citizens to use, quote, deadly force against police officers. Republican Governor Mitch Daniels has signed Senate-enrolled Act 1 into law in Indiana. The new law allows citizens to use deadly force against police officers they think are illegally entering their homes. Earlier this month, Addicting Info reported that the bill had passed the Senate. Republicans say the bill is designed to keep police safe, but Democrats say the bill will lead to the wanton killing of police officers. Representative Craig Fry, a Democrat, says the bill is, quote, going to cause people to die, and it's too late after somebody dies for a jury to sort it out. Has rings of the Trayvon Martin rhetoric, where people are saying, you know, why does Zimmerman deserve a trial when Trayvon never got a trial? Let's just dispense with justice altogether. And there are actually quotes just to outright murder Zimmerman. That's basically the same kind of rhetoric we're hearing with this Indiana law. We got Fry, this Democrat, repeatedly saying people are going to die, people are going to die. But what this actually does is reverse a Supreme Court decision in Indiana last year, which stated that people do not have the right to defend themselves in their own home when police unlawfully enter. We reported that on INFOWARS last year. And the quote from that case was, "We hold that the right to reasonably resist an unlawful police entry into a home is no longer recognized under Indiana law." And that was the case Richard L. Barnes versus Indiana. So now we've got a reversal of that. And this article by Stephen D. Foster Jr. basically uses the Trayvon Martin incident, which nobody knows anything about. The trial hasn't taken.
Tonight, we take you now to London, England, and Paul Joseph Watson.
Top story tonight. Washington Post suggests Bilderberg Group to pick Mitt Romney's running mate. A story in today's Washington Post written by veteran columnist Al Kamen suggests that the Bilderberg Group may have a decisive role to play in picking Mitt Romney's running mate, continuing a recent trend in which the secretive cabal has had a hand in influencing the U.S. presidential election. So we have a 30-year veteran at the Washington Post, this Al Kamen, who has a column called In the Loop, and if anyone was in the loop, then you would expect him to be you know, on the inside of the affairs, especially given the fact that what news on this April 12, 2012 edition with me, your host, Paul Joseph Watson.
Tonight on INFOWARS Nightly News, is the Bilderberg Group choosing Romney's running mate? We examine the blatant political manipulation of the power elite. Then Homeland Security expands its power grab with environmental justice units. Plus, citizens in Indiana may now use deadly force to defend themselves against the growing police state. All this and more.
Welcome to INFOWARS Nightly. Washington Post has a Bilderberg representative at every meeting, and he basically says that just as Bilderberg picked John Edwards as Kerry's running mate in 2004, after Edwards had given a strong speech on foreign policy, he implies that the same process could be happening with Mitt Romney's VP pick. That's what you get from reading between the lines, because we've got Obama and Hillary Clinton jetting